Today we want to take notes called Interpret Features of a Proportional Graph. An essential question for today, what does unit rate mean? What does unit rate mean? So let's start off with what a proportional graph is. Proportional graph. So a proportional graph, we're just going to draw the X and Y axis in the quadrant 1. So that first little quadrant there. So there's your X and Y axis, and we'll label it. Here is our X axis. Here is our Y-axis. Remember this point where they meet, that's called the origin. So then write that down. We have our X-axis, that's the horizontal one. We have our Y-axis, that's the vertical one. And the origin is the one right there in the middle. And a proportional graph has to be two things. I'm going to draw it here. It has to be linear, meaning it's a straight line. So check, it is linear. It doesn't make a straight line. And also it must start at the origin, which if we remember, that's 0.00. So it must start at the origin. So proportional graph needs two things. It needs to be a linear line, straight line, and it needs to start at the origin. So all the graphs that we're going to look at for this part of the unit are all going to be proportional. They're going to be straight lines, and they're going to start at the origin 0, 0. Eventually, we'll get to lines that don't start at 0, 0. But for right now, those are the only ones we're looking at. And another important piece of information we're going to talk about is the unit rate. And what does unit rate mean? It is the amount. Actually, let's do this. The Y value when X equals 1. The Y value when X equals 1. I'll write that a little neater for you. The Y value when X equals 1. And that's going to change because we're going to do problems where they have actual context, some word problems. And so the Y value and X equals 1, those are going to mean something according to the problem. So we're going to look at those. All right, so write those down. Those are important. We're going to look at 4 different types of questions. I'm actually going to hand them out. You're going to glue them onto your notes, and then we'll continue with the rest of these notes here. All right, so here we go. Number 1, the one with Zoe. So it says here, Zoe buys mobile games via an app store on her phone. The relationship between the number of games downloaded, X, and the total cost in dollars of the downloads, Y, is represented by the graph below. What does the ordered pair 742 indicate? So here's what we're going to do. I want you to put an X under 7 and a Y under 42. Because this is the X coordinate. The first number is always the X coordinate. And this is the Y coordinate. The second number is always the Y coordinate. Now, in this problem, they mean something. So if we look here, the relationship, I'm reading here on top, the relationship between the number of games downloaded, X. So X is the number of games downloaded, and the total cost of dollars, the total cost in dollars of the downloads, Y. So the total cost of downloads, Y. So I know X is, let's go ahead and write this down. X is number of games downloaded, and Y is cost of games downloaded. So X is the number of games, Y is then the cost of those games. So if we look here, what does that mean? And here's our X again, 7. If I go straight down here, that shows me where the 7 came from. It came from the X-axis, And this X-axis, remember, is the games downloaded. So how many games did Zoe download? So let's go ahead and write this down. She downloaded 7 games, and here's where 42 came from, and this is the the total cost. She downloaded 7 games, and the total cost was $42. So that's exactly what that point means. That 0.742 that we set up here, what does that that number indicate? It indicated that she downloaded 7 games, and those 7 games cost her $42. $42. Now, unit rate says, well, then how much did each game cost? How much did one game cost? Remember, what's the Y? What's the cost when there's only one game? So some of you can figure that out. We're going to look at how to do that right now. On number 2 here with Alyssa. Alyssa buys mobile games via an app store on her phone. The relationship between the number of games downloaded X and the total cost of the dollars of the cost in dollars of the downloads Y is represented by the graph below. 2 points A and B are labeled. Which statement about the graph is true? So here we have A and B. So A, 4 games cost her $32. 1 game then is going to cost her $8. And notice all of these questions, these answers have to do with unit rate. Unit rate means what is Y when X equals 1? What is Y when X equals 1? Well, here is Y. Y is 1. So, X is 1. That's the number of games downloaded. So when there's 1 game, what's the cost of that 1 game? 8. So that's point B. Point B shows me what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and look here. Point B shows me that the unit rate is, and it is in fact $8. It is in fact $8. So my answer here is the first one. Point B shows me that. When X equals 1, then Y equals 8. Good. All right, the next one here. A grocery store sells, number 3. A grocery store sells sliced pastrami by weight. The relationship between the amount of pastrami in pounds X and the total cost in dollars is sliced pastrami Y is represented in the graph below. What is the constant of proportionality as shown in the graph? So for this one, what we're going to do, we need to find the constant of proportionality. What that means is we're going to say, what is Y divided by X? Our Y coordinate divided by our X coordinate. So let's go ahead and mark those. So here's our X coordinate. Here's our Y coordinate. And we're going to say 28 goes on top, divided by 8 on the bottom. Now, you can use a calculator if you want. 28 divided by 8, I know that's going to be 3.5. 3.5. You just divide Y over X. And so your answer there will be 3.5. Last one here, number 4. Fabian has just gotten a new job. The relationship between the number of hours he works X and the total earnings Y is represented in the graph below. What point on the graph represents the unit rate? Remember, unit rate is what is Y when X equals 1? So let's find X equals 1 on my graph. Here's 1, so here's the point. And my unit rate is 30. So the coordinate then would be 1 is my X. What was Y when X is 1? What's Y? Look over here, and it is 30. It is 30. So my answer is 1 comma 30 with my parentheses. That point represents the unit rate. It's how much is 1 of the hours he worked. How much does he earn when he works 1 hour? He earns $30 per hour. Good. So those are our practice problems. The reflection question says, what is unit rate? The unit rate is what is Y when X equals 1? What is Y when X equals 1? That's how you find unit rate. Good. And those will conclude our notes for today.